when atheists make Bible movies, you get films like this. How could you cast Batman as Moses and still have the movie be more boring than church? Never send Hollywood to do a Christian's job. No, not that Christian. You had your chance. Still like his Batman, though. There are two problems when it comes to faith-based movies. Number one, most Christian films look cheap because they don't have the budget. The second problem is when Hollywood attempts to make their own faith movie, which is when you get Noah talking to rock monsters. Was a global flood not epic enough for you, Hollywood? Most faith-based movies fall apart quickly. And watching them is like walking on Legos with your eyes. It's hard to feel God in a faith-based film when they have the production value of a church play.
I don't feel safe!
Hey, you don't cry until the last scene!
Pray for them. Hollywood has all of the production value, but none of the Christian value. How can we as believers enjoy a faith-based film that's as enjoyable as a blockbuster, but retains the power and truth of the Bible? We need a Hollywood-quality movie created by actual believers, and that movie is The Shift. It's about a man who meets the devil himself and gets banished to a dark, parallel Earth where he fights to get back to the woman he loves. The script explores some of today's hardest questions about maintaining faith, like how can a loving God allow suffering? Or how can I overcome feelings of despair and hopelessness? Finally, you can see a faith-based film that feels like your favorite movies. The Shift is a sci-fi film that will make you think deeply like Inception and weep like Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar. Man, even his ugly cry looks good. I can't do it. I can't. I'm not that talented. Using popular genres to share faith-based stories is a great way to entertain and inspire a love for God. Look at C.S. Lewis, who used fantasy to share Christian themes and inspire millions. And make millions. Even Jesus used creative storytelling to make his sermons more interesting. Parables. I'm talking about parables. We need your help to turn The Shift into a full-length feature film. But rather than pass around a donation plate, we want you to own part of the movie. Click the link to invest in The Shift today. The plan is for The Shift to be distributed by Angel Studios, which helped The Chosen become the largest crowdfunded media project of all time. Angel Studios' distribution of The Chosen then went on to generate over $70 million in revenue and over 250 million views. Here's what the creator of The Chosen has to say about The Shift.
I have actually signed on to be one of the executive producers of The Shift, and I want to see more, and I want to be part of it. And it reaches me on both an intellectual level and an emotional level.
Angel Studios also helped the Wingfeather Saga, an animated fantasy series created by a Christian author, become the largest crowdfunded kids and family animated project in history. When you invest in The Shift, you're not just investing in a groundbreaking Christian film. You have the potential to share in the profits. Now, we don't have one of these prophets to promise that you'll make this profit. But I am going to repeat that The Chosen earned $70 million in revenue. That's the highest earning faith-based project of the last 2 years. The Shift not only has the incredible potential in the marketplace, it's just an incredible movie. Listen to these reviews from folks who watched the short film. Jane F. wrote, "This looks amazing. I've never seen a faith-based film like this." Ronnie said, "There's actually no way to convey how this spoke to me just now. I look forward to seeing what God does with this film." And Jason commented recently with, "Wow, just wow." And what will really wow you is discovering that the short film was created with almost zero budget and it has already touched hundreds of thousands of lives. Imagine the impact The Shift can have on hearts and minds with the proper funds. Most indie Christian films operate with a budget of about $500,000. And honestly, it shows. She's fine. Maybe the little shepherd boy could say a quick prayer? Yep, we good? With 10 times the production value, we can truly do justice to the epic themes in the Bible. So click on the link to invest in The Shift today. Look, there's nothing wrong with a film that's a labor of love, but those usually just become cult classics, which is not the best label for a Christian movie to receive. Enjoy Sunday morning values with Saturday night entertainment. Click the link to invest in The Shift today.
Hey there, I'm Brock Heasley, the writer and director of The Shift.
And I'm Orlando J. Gomez, producer of The Shift.
And we're very excited to be with you here today. We've got a really, really special live stream prepared. We're going to be talking with our friend, Justen Overlander. We want to welcome anybody who's seeing us for the first time, but they're curious about what Justen is up to, and so they want to see, what in the world he's doing talking to the guys from The Shift. So welcome. We're very excited to have you. We are currently in an investment round, raising money for a film that we're doing called The Shift, which is about a man's encounter with the devil, kind of a modern-day Job story. Sharon says, excited to hear this. And we got some other comments rolling in from Jane as well. Excited to be here and what is going to be shared with us. Yeah, we are going to be sharing. I'm not going to say it's heavy, but I'm not going to say it's light. We're going to get a little serious on you here. We're going to peel back the curtain and let you know kind of what from our lives is inspiring us to work on The Shift. And Justin's going to help us out with that. We got Roper here from Texas. Good to see you, Roper. I'm just calling things out as I'm glancing down and seeing them. So if I miss you, I apologize. But if you go to angelstudios.com/The Shift, right now you can invest in The Shift. And look, we're going to end this thing November 23rd. You only have until November 23rd to invest in The Shift. Or unless we get our max before that, in which case it'll be quicker than that. But there is not a lot of time. That's basically 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So if you're watching and you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to invest. No, it's not. I'm going to. You got to do it now because there's not a lot of time left. But we would love to partner with you and love to see you come on board.
And it looks like a couple already came through.
Oh, we had some come through. Yeah. I missed that. Oh, great. Marcella from California has invested $150. Thank you, Marcella. We're so glad to partner with you. Osborne for Virginia invested $501. Awesome. Thank you so much, Osborne. And anybody else?
There's a couple.
I'm going to say Jara from California invested $105. So good to have you on board. Thank you for partnering with us. And anybody who does invest with us while we're live today, we would love to shout you out. Like I said, we do have Justen Overlander, the associate producer, one of the associate producers of The Chosen, is going to come and he's going to talk with us. Specifically, Justin and I are going to talk, and we're going to do something different. Usually, when a guest comes on, I interview them. Justin is actually going to interview me.
You're in the hot seat.
I'm in the hot seat today. But Justin's a really good friend. He's a really good dude. Any of you who know him from The Chosen, and he's very active with The Chosen, and especially in getting the word out and taking people behind the scenes. Justin is so good at that. He has such a heart for, his faith and for good Christian content, which of course The Chosen is, and which of course we want The Shift to be as well. And feel that we already are doing that, especially with the short film, which some of you have already seen. We have a goal today.
Okay, what's
our goal today is to get to $10,000 in investments while we are alive.
During the stream, okay.
So we're starting at $364,000. That's what it was when we first started.
Okay.
There we are right there. And if we can get to $374,000, what are we going to do? We're going to have Orlando reveal to us what the scene is within the Shift feature film that he's most looking forward to shooting, seeing, and experiencing.
In the feature.
Yeah, in the feature. So we might get in a little bit of spoiler territory, but not too bad.
There'll be a little spoiler.
A little bit, but we'll keep it calm so that those of you that are trying to remain unspoiled, you're not going to be too shaken by what Orlando has to say. So we have a theme for today's live stream. The theme is, what is your shift? I don't think, and this is by design, nobody passes through this life unscathed. We all have things that happen to us. Sometimes they're big moments. Sometimes they're things that last for years, just these trials, and there's this fly in my face. Sometimes it's a fly in your face and you can't get rid of it. We have these things that happen to us, and they challenge us, and they cause us to either look to God or curse Him. They can really affect us either way, depending on how we handle it. So we're calling that a shift in our lives, a shift in our perspective, a shift in just the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And today we're going to talk about our personal shifts. I know Orlando has a story to share. I have a story to share. Justin has a story to share. And look, we're artists. We create art. In this case, we create movies. And those kinds of things, those shifts, those in some cases tragedies that befall us, they inform what we do. And the shift, I can tell you, is coming from a very real place. And that's the place to which we're going to speak today. So I'm excited to share that with you. Also a little scared to share that with you. I'm not saying there's going to be tears, but I'm definitely not saying that. I think I said that right. Also, if any of you have any questions while we are live today, we would love to answer them. Any questions about the investment? This fly is just not giving up.
Really wants to be on screen.
I feel like he's very thematically appropriate. If you have any questions about the film, any questions about us, or about the investment, we would love to answer them. One of the things that's really exciting about this project is that it's not just a couple of bums in an office who are making this film. There's a whole team surrounding the shift.
It is that and more.
It is that and more. Yes, it is two bums in an office, but it's also a lot more than that. One of the people that is involved in the shift is Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen. He is one of our executive producers, and he came on board because he believes in me, because he believes in the shift, he believes in this story. Yes, it's very different from The Chosen. I mean, we're doing a modern day story and it's sci-fi and what in the world, it's weird, but it works. And Dallas knows that it works and he believes in it. And he is helping us to make this film as good as it can possibly be. And here is Dallas with a very special message on why he has joined the shift and how he feels about the film.
Hey there, I'm Dallas Jenkins. I'm the creator of The Chosen, and I wanted to share with you a little bit of why I have actually signed on to be one of the executive producers of The Shift. I remember when I first saw the short film, The Shift, it was probably a couple years ago, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't know who this person is who made this, and I had heard that they did it for no money, but I'm really impressed, and I believe that this guy has a future. And I wanted to see more. I wanted to see where the shift turned out. I wanted to see how it could be expanded upon. I wanted to see what Brock could do with an actual budget. So the shift now has a relatively small budget. They're really keeping the budget low, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do, is help them maximize the budget that they do have and making sure that every penny that we spend is spent in the best and most efficient way possible, which is one of the things that I hope, if you've seen The Chosen, you've realized we did there too, was we didn't have Hollywood money, but we had enough to make something special. And I think that's what Brock has now. I think he's going to get, and I hope you can help him get, enough to make something special. And I think the message of the shift and the future of the shift is so important. And almost as important as any of that is Brock Heasley. He didn't ask me to say this, I promise. But I can tell you, I've seen his work on a writing side, I've seen it on the directing side. And in my 20 years in the business, there are very few people who I've thought, I want to pour into this person because I think that this person has the chance to be an impactful and disruptive and important storyteller in this business. And that is Brock. Brock is someone who, when I read what he's writing, I'm connected to it. And I want to see more, and I want to be part of it. And it reaches me on both an intellectual level and an emotional level. And if you've seen The Chosen, maybe that's what you've appreciated about it as well, is that it's not just pure emotion. It's emotion that has some thought behind it, but it's also not pure intellect. It's intellect that has some heart behind it. And all of that is, there's kind of an umbrella over all of it of a spiritual importance. Something is being said about our universe and who created it.
Nothing. Nothing. Tomorrow. I am greater than God. Jesus Christ.
And that's what The Shift is about. That's what The Chosen is about. It's one of the reasons why I've signed on board, and I hope you can get involved as well to be part of the beginning of what I believe is an important project and who I believe is an important filmmaker.
We need your help to turn The Shift into a full-length feature film. Click the link to invest in The Shift today.
All right, and we've got some comments rolling in right now from people watching. I want to take a look at some of those. Patricia says, I invested in this film on your last drive. Very happy it is growing and coming to pass. God bless you all. Thank you so much, Patricia. Yeah, Patricia, for partnering with us. So Patricia's, what she's referring to is that we have actually done 2 previous crowdfunding rounds, and this is now our 3rd one. And we opened it up because the demand was enormous.
Yeah.
Kara says, The Shift is such a cool name for so many reasons. This movie will bring it even more into the cultural vernacular. You've talked about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've talked about how I catch myself noticing that word being used more often. I say it more often. Yeah. And just felt like, this could be very, very much one of those things like The Matrix, right? Like, oh, I just had deja vu. Oh, it's a glitch in the Matrix,
Right. It's like, I still say that.
Yeah, it's like,
it's been how many years since I moved?
Exactly. Oh, glitch in the Matrix. But, it'd be like, I got shifted. I must have just got shifted, or it's a shift moment, or something along those lines.
Yeah. Anytime I forget something, or like, my wife swears that I said this and I swear that I didn't. Mm-hmm. Yes, I got shifted, and she hates it when I do that.
You created an excuse for all.
I did, and she's like, you cannot use that. Gigi says the shift film was brilliantly blessed created. And then a whole bunch, like a fire and a dove and a heart and a world and a cross and prayer hands. Awesome. Thank you so much, Gigi. We got any other comments here? We got one from Mark. He says, warming up to make it through Justin's puns. So Justen Overlander is coming on in just a minute. He is famous for his puns. And Mark, I have a feeling Justen will not disappoint you.
I'm sure.
Cool. Well, we want to, for those of you that are investing, we want to share with you, there are actually some perks. Depending on which level you invest at, there are some perks. We want to run through those real fast just so that you can get an idea of what you could get depending on what level you invest at. And if you've already invested and maybe you didn't get the perk you wanted, you can still add to your investment up until we close the offering. So first of all, the minimum investment is $100. $100 you get added to our backer list. You're on the website. You're enshrined as a supporter of the shift forever. After that, if you invest $300 or more, you get your name in the credits of the film, which is actually not that much money to have your name in the credits of a movie. So we would love to have you in those credits. $600 or more, we're going to be crafting an exclusive newsletter from the creators. You'll have access to that. And $1,000 or more, you're going to receive a director's cut of the trailer. So I'm going to make a special cut of the trailer, probably with stuff that isn't in the other trailer that we're going to release to the public, because it'll be a little bit longer. You're going to get to see that.
So you've heard of the Snyder cut, you'll get the Brock cut.
Yeah, you get the Brock cut of the trailer. $1,500 or more gets you early digital access to the film. You get to see it before anybody else. I feel like that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And by the way, every perk comes with every previous perk. So $1,500 or more gets you all the perks before that as well. So these things accumulate as they get bigger. $3,000 or more, you're going to get access to an exclusive behind-the-scenes photo album. So we're going to have photos that are going to be releasing to the public, but you're going to get to see a lot more than that. And let's see, $5,000 or more. Would you like to be in the shift? Would you like to be an extra? Be on set with us? You'd like to be an extra? Well, see, Orlando, you're going to have to invest $3,000.
All right.
Or $5,000. No, Orlando probably can do that anyway. But if you would like that opportunity, it's $5,000 investment. And of course, you're responsible for your own travel and lodgings and things like that. We'll let you know what days are available for you to do that. $10,000 or more, you're going to get a signed copy of the shooting script, signed by me, probably by Orlando too, and we're going to ship that over to you. And $25,000 or more, you get to come to the set, and you get to have a one-day full access to the set. So you get to wander around, you get to see what's going on. That's a really unprecedented, very cool thing to have. $50,000 or more. Not only are you coming to the set, but now you and I, we're going to sit down. We're going to have a meal together. You're going to get to ask me questions. You get to make fun of me. You get to do whatever you want. I'm yours for that break. I would really love to do that. I mean, anybody that would like to come down and just chat and eat, I'm all for that. Okay, here's where we get to the really serious stuff. $75,000 or more, and you are an associate producer on this film. You are listed in the credits. You're kind of in the front of the credits. That is a very, very big deal. And finally, for $100,000 or more, you become an executive producer. Do you know who else is an executive producer on this film? Dallas Jenkins. You and Dallas are going to have the same credit on this film for $100,000 or more. So those are the perks, and you get everything below that as well. And you get a credit on IMDb, which is pretty cool. So those are the perks. That's what's at stake if you invest into this. I mean, not only are you becoming a partner and potentially sharing the profits, if there are any, and all of that stuff, but you get all of these perks as well. So we'd love to have you come on. But okay, enough of that. We want to get down to business here. So our theme today is, what is your shift? What is the thing that has happened in your life? Maybe it's an event, maybe it's something that happened over a course of years, but something that changed your perspective. We would love to hear from you. If you've got something that you'd like to drop in the comments and just talk about something that impacted you, that I think particularly we're talking about things that kind of lead us to God, or that make us think about God, or make us wonder about God. Sometimes that's what it is we're wondering what in the world He's doing with us. If you've got a shift like that, please share it and let us know. Lindy says, I cannot wait to see how our lives are so portrayed in the shift. And Lindy, that's really the goal here, is that we want to show a real, obviously it's science fiction, but we want to show somebody going through something very real, something that we can all identify with. And that's what we're talking about today. Kevin goes through a shift, probably multiple shifts within the feature film, and definitely within the short film. But we have also experienced shifts. And Orlando, I want to turn that over to you and just let you, I know that you've got your own story to share. I don't think anybody's ever heard your story. So this is our chance to hear from Orlando.
Yeah, awesome. So it's really interesting because this was always kind of a difficult thing for me to talk about, really, honestly, up until maybe a couple of years ago, just because I never felt like I had a real testimony, right? Like we a lot of people talk about these great conversion stories or these great moments in their lives where God really showed up in a huge way. And I felt like I never had that, right? Like my thing was I was born in the church, raised in the church, lived in the church, served in the church, still serve in the church. Like it's been the slow and steady, the goody two shoes in school. I lived through that. Yeah. So school was fun. Yeah. School was fun.
Right.
And so, sarcastically. And so it was always really hard for me, like to talk about, my God experiences, because I feel like, I don't really have one that's going to, that's going to call people to the altar and they're going to, change their lives because of my life experience. But, the reality is you look in retrospect and I can see God's hand in my life all along the way, right? And in these moments that He really shows up, and so my story really begins at age 11. I'm diagnosed with a very rare eye disease called uveitis, which meant I spent most of my junior high school years and subsequent in the hospital, going and getting treatments, experimental treatments, infusions, eye drops, pills. I was getting shots in my skin once a week, even got to the point where every month I was getting eye injections, like literally a shot directly into my eyeballs, so that I wouldn't go blind, which is kind of important, right? So that was my childhood. And it didn't get any better as I got older. I still deal with that. I still go through all those same treatments. But what I learned after, graduated high school, started my business at 17, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. I knew I wanted to tell stories and starting to pursue that career. I get married at 19 and now I'm trying to provide for a family and grow a business. But I realized
19, that's so 19. That's so young.
I was 19. Yeah.
My wife was 19 when we got married, so I shouldn't talk. But
she was 21. She was older.
Your wife was 21.
Yeah, she's older than me.
Right.
So and now I'm trying to provide for my family. Trying to grow a business. And I quickly realized I can't just take whatever job I want because, and we've had lapses in insurance in the past. And after a couple months of non-treatment, my eyes just completely start to deteriorate. And so I was always bound by insurance. And so I was always, and this was before you were allowed to get whatever insurance you wanted because of pre-existing conditions. At the time, if you had a pre-existing condition, it automatically excluded you from getting new insurance.
Right.
So,
which is
crazy.
It's insane that was a thing.
That was a thing forever. And that was normal. Right. And so I would literally I would have to work the job that would give me benefits. And I couldn't leave it unless I found another job that had the same thing.
Right.
And the added issue of if it was a different type of insurance carrier, well, then maybe I wouldn't be able to get covered by my same doctor, and it's just headaches. Got to the point where eventually I kind of took the plunge and went forward to really pursue my career. And I took a job doing some video work and some design work. And but the premium for the insurance was so expensive because they were willing to cover part of it because I technically didn't fall in the category of getting it. So what happened is every 2 weeks when payroll was run, I wouldn't receive a check. I would receive a bill. I was actually paying my employer the difference because of how costly the insurance was.
Right.
So I would be paying them every 2 weeks to keep my job, to keep my insurance, to keep my eyesight. And that was life for a long time. And it just, I always just felt like it's just this grind and this trying to do the right things, trying to pursue, like, God, why would you give me this passion to do film that doesn't make any money for a very long time?
Right.
In an industry that requires sight, that is failing me, that I can't afford to do, and it's just like, why put this drive in me if you're going to stifle every opportunity to live it out. And that was, and has been, my life experience. But the reality is like, it was always, sacrifice and sacrifice. My wife and my kids have been great. We've endured a lot, but there's times where, like, everything's got to be on the table. You've got to be willing to give up time. You've got to be willing to give up money. You've got to be willing to give up job opportunity. I mean, give up the career itself. There are times where, we make $16,000 in a whole year, and, wife and 3 kids, that doesn't work. Right. And so we get to these points where, like, okay, well, God, then maybe, yes, I feel this is what you've called me to do. This is what I desire to do. I feel like I have the skills to do this, but it doesn't work. Maybe I need to rethink my career path. Maybe I need to do something different. And every time I'd get to that breaking point, and it would happen multiple times in my life, God would provide, something would come through out of the blue. He'd provide a way. There'd be some new job, some new income, whatever it was. And I would feel like just that encouragement, like, hang in there, keep going, keep going. And so for me, my connection to the shift is like this, we're going to see Kevin go through very similar things where it's years spent enduring, not understanding why, trying to be faithful, and not liking it, not happy about it, but fighting and holding on for dear life to keep that faith alive. And I feel like that's been my life experience, and that's how this story really connects with me.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because some of that, we've talked about this before, but some of that's detail that I didn't even know. I mean, like with the whole thing with the insurance. I mean, I've dealt with medical insurance with my daughter. It's been a constant, struggle. And that is such an undervalued trial. Right. Like it's something that's so prevalent but it's so invisible. Like nobody can see that that's going on. Yeah. But boy, when you're financially you're suffering a financial hardship because of a physical ailment. Right. I mean, so many people know about that.
It has nothing to do with anything you've done. It's just, it just is. Right?
Exactly. And you didn't do anything to make it happen.
Right. And you think about, in the Bible, when, the Pharisees are asking Jesus, like, so what did this person do to deserve this? What did their parents do to deserve this?
Exactly.
And it's like, that's what it feels like. It's like, God, what did I do? What do I need to change? What needs to change around me to not have this? But that's but that's not how it works. But it's to show God's glory, to show that through all of that, when the odds are against him, there's no reason why we should have been able to pay the bills we did. And many times in our life, he comes through somehow, and it's to his glory. Right. And that's what it's all about. And it's that persistence and that staying faithful, because God will stay faithful as long as you do. And sometimes even when you're not faithful, he's still faithful. Right. So that is my story. It's just not one thing. It's just kind of like a lifelong grind and a challenge.
But that totally fits. I mean, like you said, that is a lot of what, especially the feature film. It takes place over years. It's not something that just happens and then it's gone. It's something that Kevin has to endure, and I feel like that is the much more common experience. Right. It's not exactly my experience. I mean, it is a little bit. I've definitely endured some very long trials, and in some ways, I'm still enduring some very long trials. But here's a comment from Lindy. She says, "I screamed at God so often. Why is everything so hard?" Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've done that same scream, Lindy. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
My wife will talk about just nights where we'll just go out on a drive and we'll just like sit in a parking lot and just silence. Yeah. And just what is going on? Right. What are you supposed to do? So helpless. Like, God, what are you doing?
Now, for me, when I think about the shift and where it's coming from and what really inspired me to do it, I think a lot of it does relate to the different trials that I have gone through personally. And there's one trial in particular that comes to mind often for me when I think about the shift, when I just think about my life in general. And a little while ago, I went to the place where that trial actually occurred, and I talked about it a little bit. And here's a peek at that. To be honest with you, they were pretty faithless prayers. I didn't think that they were going to do any good, but I didn't know what else to do. And gosh, this is hard to do this in front of this. Hey everybody, Brock Heasley, the writer and director of The Shift here, and I'm out here on the outskirts of Fresno, California, the city where we shot The Shift, surrounded by smoke. I don't know if you can tell, but there's no sky, that's just all smoke. There's fire in the foothills. All of California is on fire right now. My car is right there. It's covered in ash when I got into it this morning. And why am I out here? Why am I out here in front of this empty dirt field with all this traffic raging behind me? I'm out here because I want to talk about darkness. I want to talk about why The Shift is the way that it is. I've been blessed, and I say blessed specifically, to have dark times in my life. And those dark times have given me perspective on God and perspective on life. And it has helped me to see His love and to see His light shine. My father was packing up for the night 3 days before my 12th birthday. This was years ago. 2 men burst in with semi-automatic submachine guns and immediately began firing. The first bullets went right towards him, hit him in the stomach, and he fell to the ground. The next bullets went into the cases, the display cases where all the guns were kept. And as soon as the glass broke, they began quickly gathering the guns into a bag. And then they kept shooting my father as he was lying there on the ground. They didn't want any witnesses. And they made sure of that, shooting him over and over and over again, up and down his body. And then they left. And as you can see where I am right now, there's not a whole lot here. A couple of farmhouses, a highway road that's a lot more active than it was back then. And he was alone, and there was nobody coming. He was shot 13 times. I honestly don't know anybody else who's ever been shot that many times. But he was shot that many times, and he was on the ground, and he had a decision to make about what he was going to do, and whether or not he was going to get up and call 911 or give in to the pain and die. To my father's credit, he got up. He climbed his way to the phone that was hanging on the wall, picked up the receiver, and laid back down. Accidentally, he dialed 411 at first. And so with his legs riddled with bullets, he had to get back up again and redial 911. And he did. And the paramedics eventually got to him, but they had to wait outside for the police to come and secure the scene. And as they were waiting, he was talking to the EMT, a frustrated EMT, who was just trying to get my dad to hang on long enough so the paramedics could come in and save his life. But my dad did not believe that he was going to be living much longer, and so he pled with the man on the phone to call my mom and to tell her that he loved her, and to also give a message to his sons, myself and my brothers, that he loved us too and that we should be good. That was his last message to us. Or it was what he thought it was his last message. As it turned out, my father did live that night. The paramedics were able to save his life. They brought him to the hospital. He was in very bad shape, and he was in the ICU for a week. But 3 weeks after the shooting, he did come home. He could only get around in a wheelchair at first, and then eventually a walker. And then by the end of the year, he was running and playing with us. And the thing that sticks out the most to me about my dad and about how he dealt with that trauma was that he never really was traumatized from it at all, nor did he harbor any bitterness or ill feelings. He had this joke that he would tell. He would talk about the guys that did it, the guys who shot him, and how he just wanted 5 minutes alone in a room with them. Just 5 minutes alone. And it was like a joke he would tell. I knew my dad would never do anything. He never spoke of them otherwise. It didn't change his outlook. It didn't change who he was. It didn't change his willingness to help and to serve others. He was a guy who knew that bad things happen in this world, and then he moved on and tried to learn what he could from them. 8 years later, I get a phone call from my grandfather. I'm serving as a missionary at this time. I'm in Arizona. I haven't seen my dad in 10 months. I get a phone call from my grandpa, and he tells me that it's happened again. 2 men burst into the store that was right here and shot my father. And I knew immediately he was dead. In a way that I didn't know when I was younger. When I was younger, I believed that he would live. But I knew instantly when Grandpa told me that Dad had been shot that was it for him. But I kept hope anyway. And I prayed over the next hour. And to be honest with you, they were pretty faithless prayers. I didn't think that they were going to do any good, but I didn't know what else to do. And gosh, this is hard to do this in front of this. Then my mom called me, and she told me that Dad had died. And I hung up the phone, and I went into my room, and I took off my tie, and I hung it on the rack, and I looked down at my feet, and I squared them up with the closet. I remember that specifically doing that action. And I think it was just a sense of wanting to do something that I had some control over. Wanting to do something that was precise and right. And in that moment, squaring up my feet was that thing, just making them square and perpendicular to the closet. And then I started thinking about the men who had done this, who had killed him. I didn't know them, I didn't know their names, I didn't know their faces. But I started thinking about them, and I got so angry. I was so mad at them because there were two men that did this. There was somebody responsible. God didn't do this, two men did it. God allowed it to happen. Why, I didn't know. But two men had done it. And in that moment, I felt so angry at them. Such frustration. And then, almost immediately, the feeling left. It was gone. Completely. And it was replaced by a peace. A peace that my father was okay. I knew who he was. I knew he was a faithful man. I was pretty confident about where he was. But my thoughts turned again to those men. And I thought about what they had done. And I realized that there was a greater tragedy that had happened that night besides the death of my father. And the greater tragedy was what those two men had done to themselves. Physical death is one thing, but the spiritual death that takes place when somebody sins, and a sin of the magnitude that they committed that night, that is the kind of pain that is far greater than any physical pain that we can possibly encounter. I doubt very much that those men realized that night the magnitude of what they had done, or the loss that they had experienced in their soul. But the thing that I did know was that one day they would understand that. One day they would know what they had done, whether in this life or the next. They would be confronted with what they had done. And that would be a very bitter day indeed. And in thinking about that, my anger was replaced with empathy, with sympathy, and even with love. In that moment, I loved the men who killed my father. And I don't say that flippantly. It was a very real thing, and it was so real that it hasn't stopped. I have never, since that night, felt a moment of bitterness or anger. I was blessed with a perspective on what happened that night that has remained with me ever since. And the thing is that I wouldn't have that understanding. I wouldn't have seen that light. God's light shined so bright that night, and it has continued to shine brighter in my life ever since that night. Brighter than it ever did before. And that wouldn't have happened without passing through that kind of darkness. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't take my father back in an instant if that were possible and erase that whole thing. But I can't deny the benefit that it was to me and the way that it has helped me and changed me as a person and made me into so much of what I am now. I'm still growing, but I know that I am so much more than I would have been because of what I passed through and what my family passed through that night. That's why I'm making this film. Those are the stories I want to tell. We are having a very real experience here on earth. We are passing through trial. There is fire in the foothills. The world is on fire, and the world is also good and great and wonderful. Suffering is awful and terrible, but it is also a glorious thing. And the reason that I am making this film is because I want to talk about that directly. If you've seen the short film, then you know a little bit, but you don't know the half of what we're doing with this thing. Kevin's journey, the story of the shift, is about a man passing through incredible, unbelievable, oppressing darkness. But we're going to tell it in a way. We're going to tell that story in a way that is going to bring light. If you think about the times in your life when you've experienced trial, maybe it's not like my story, but you've got your own story. You've passed through something that was difficult, that was hard, that you didn't want to be at all, and you were better for it. I believe that's an important message to bring to people, to show them that even in the worst suffering, even in the worst kind of difficulty, that God is still there. And if we are faithful, He will show us His light. When I come here, that's what I think of. I think of, yes, this is where my father died, but I also think of the greatest blessings that have ever come to me in my life, the greatest light and knowledge. It's the struggle that allows light and hope to be made manifest. And that's all I really wanted to say on this. Beyond the calls for investment and the money we need to make this film and how we're not going to be able to do it if we don't, I hope you understand that it's coming from a very real place. I believe that there's an important message to share with people, that there is a hope that can be had even in the darkest of times. If that is something that you think is important, if you think that that's something that needs to go out there and be shared with people, I hope you'll join us in telling this story and partnering with us. Thanks very much. All right, that is my story, and here we are now joined with Justen Overlander. Justen, welcome. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, I think let's kick things off with a bunch of puns and jokes after that. And
yeah, right. We're all feeling that right now, I think. There's no tears in this house.
No,
it's funny.
Every time
we're going to figure out this time delay thing. That video, somebody commented, I was looking at the comments, somebody said, oh, this must have been a really hard video to make. It is a much, much harder video to watch back than it was to make, to be honest with you. But go ahead, Justen, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that I've seen it a number of times, and every time it just gets me because, as you know, I share an adjacent story with you that we'll get into at one point. But yeah, I mean, I watched that, and the way it connects to the shift and the way it parallels what we're doing with The Chosen too is just so remarkable, because I think what works in The Chosen is the relatability of the followers of Jesus. People can see themselves in Mary Magdalene. People can see themselves in Matthew the tax collector. They can see themselves in Simon, in Andrew, in little James, and whomever. And people are going to see themselves in Kevin and the other characters in The Shift too. And knowing your backstory is just what ties that all together. So I love your vulnerability, your authenticity, and as you know, I'm a huge fan of yours and excited to see where your career goes with The Shift and beyond.
Yeah, no, and look, likewise, I'm a huge fan of yours as well. Justen and I became friends on the set of The Chosen last year and have remained in touch ever since. And so he's been a great friend not only to me, but to The Shift. And of course, with his work with The Chosen, he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to, you know, what are the messages and the things that we need to get out there. You know, and I think what makes The Chosen so successful is that it is relatable. You know, exactly what you're saying. It's that relatability, and I think sometimes that's maybe missing in our drive to just get a message across, and we're kind of missing so many people who really need to connect with the experiences of these characters first before they can really hear the message, and that's what I want to do with The Shift. But Justen, we're doing things a little bit differently. I'm turning the reins over to you, which is something I've never done before. As we talk a little bit here, but I want to talk about, you know, our shifts. Your shift, I definitely want to get into, but I'm going to let you just take it. So you go with it. I'm at your mercy.
I think first we have to acknowledge the answered prayer earlier in the live stream. For those of you that have been with us since the beginning of this live stream, somebody somewhere prayed to be a fly on the wall during this live stream with you, right?
Probably, I'm guessing.
I'm assuming that's where the fly came from anyway, but I want to jump in, Brock, and the thing that strikes me so much about the video that you shared, and you and I have had many offline private conversations about this too, but how in the world, when you get this news and you have a moment of I don't think you used the word anger or frustration or anything, but you were able to forgive these guys and just have an empathetic heart immediately. How? That blows my mind. How?
It really doesn't make sense to hold on to anger and a grudge, especially with people I don't even know. Because I never met them. I don't know who they are, and so I guess in some ways it can be easier to hate somebody you don't know. I think we see that sometimes, especially in our world today, where people are so divided and have this hatred for people that they have no association with. But I think for me, actually, to reverse all of that, I in the moment, I definitely did experience anger. When I found out that my father had been killed, there was definitely a moment of anger and frustration and everything you're saying. That definitely happened. But very quickly, I realized that these guys, that they were my brothers. I believe that all of us, we're all part of this one big human family. We are all sons and daughters of God. And these guys, they came into this earth the same way I did, not evil, not bad, not wanting to kill somebody, not wanting to steal, not wanting to do any of these things. And I believe that we all come here clean in that way. And that sometimes we do things that stray us from the path. And I believe that they strayed from the path, obviously, by killing somebody. I've done that too. I've committed sins. I haven't killed anybody, but I've done things that I've regretted. And I know the sorrow that comes from that kind of regret. I know how painful that is. And I realized that night that whether those guys knew it or not, they had committed a sin so terrible that at some point, whether it was that night or a night after, or maybe even after this life, they would come to a realization of what they had done. And if they were going to experience anything like what I've experienced when I have had to pay spiritually for my sins, I knew that the sin of the magnitude that they had just committed would be that payment, that feeling, that realization, that understanding of the gravity of what they'd actually done would be so heavy and so terrible that I couldn't help but feel more sorry for them than I even felt for myself, and even for my father. Because my father had been killed physically, but in many ways they had killed themselves. The killers of my father had killed themselves spiritually, and I consider that a far greater tragedy. And so once I came to that realization, and once I came to the realization that hey, we really kind of started from the same place of just being innocent and pure and coming into this world, I just couldn't help but think of them not in terms of anger, but just in terms of tragedy. And just feeling genuinely sorry for them, and then that became love in that moment. And so, with all of that swirling around in my head, forgiveness was almost matter of fact at that point. It was just a natural outgrowth of everything I was thinking and feeling. Which isn't to say that I've always been able to forgive, automatically with everything. It's more nuanced than that. But I definitely think that, having had that experience, forgiveness probably is a little bit easier for me than most people. But look, all I'm really saying is that it's because of Christ. It's because of the love of Christ. I don't think that anything I'm saying is like something I developed within myself. It's something that I think was poured into me because of my understanding of who our Savior is and my understanding of His love for all of us. That's really what I'm talking about here.
And has it been a constant level of forgiveness, or are there times where you just, Thanksgiving is coming up. I mean, the holidays are coming up. I don't know when your father's birthday is, but I'm sure all those moments kind of evoke an emotion in you that it's like, I just want to give my dad a call. Or you're struggling with something. Oh, what I wouldn't give to just have a conversation with him right now. In those moments, are you feeling that anger kind of bubble up with these men that you've never met?
It's interesting you mentioned the holidays, because it was actually 5 days before Thanksgiving that my father died. So the anniversary is coming up here really, really soon. It'll be the 25th anniversary is happening this month of his death. But honestly, genuinely, I can tell you, like, no, I've never had it come back. Not once. Once it left me, it left, and that was the end of it. My faith has been, I hope, it's been on a steady increase since then. My faith and my understanding and my empathy. And so, I mean, that may sound inhuman, that may sound foreign, that may sound, I hope it doesn't sound false, but I want to give you a real answer here. And the real answer is that no, I haven't had a single moment, even during the holidays, even during a time like this where we're coming up on the anniversary. I just have never felt that, not since that night.
What makes that so remarkable for me is because of what I went through, and I'll share my story briefly now, in that I lost my youngest sister to a drunk driver when she was 18 years old. And so I'm coming up on the 18-year anniversary of that. We're reaching the point now where I have lived just as long without her as I lived with her. She's been gone for twice what she lived here. And I remember, Brock, when I finally said out loud that I forgive the driver. It was at my computer when we were living in Los Angeles, actually, and I just had tears streaming down, and I just finally said, I forgive you. And even after that, I mean, there are still moments in my heart of hearts that I'm like, do I? I question that about myself, if I truly have forgiven the drunk driver. And there's a very there's a news story going on right now, actually. A young football player just killed somebody by making a very, very poor decision. And I approach those stories with a little more empathy than I used to, because I recognize that it's just a young person making a mistake. And my sister made a mistake, and the driver made a mistake. I mean, she was in the vehicle with the driver. That's the part that I want to be clear. She made a really poor choice, and would I want her back? Of course. I mean, I was so ridiculously close to her. Like, she and I just had this bond. Like, it's remarkable. And now my daughter, who is 16, her middle name is Mackenzie, after my sister, who I lost. And I see so much resemblance in my daughter. And when she does these little things, like, I love my daughter, of course, but there are times where it's like, oh my goodness, you are Kenzie. I mean, right now you are, and those are the moments that I'm like, I am so curious what she would have been like now, as a 36-year-old. We have a family. Would I have more nieces and nephews to love on? What would that be like? So, look, the adjacency of our stories, and I don't say that I have a similar story, because I think that me saying that mine is similar to yours would diminish yours. You saying that yours is similar to mine would diminish mine. Right. Everybody is completely unique in what loss and what tragedy they've gone through. And even I was going to allude to Orlando's story, not the physical ailment that he was going through, but just being in a financially dire situation. I mean, I got to the point where our church in California helped pay our rent. That's how bad it had gotten for us. So going back to the shift now, and just the way you are weaving in these real life struggles. And if there's anybody watching that hasn't read the feature length script yet, it's still out there, right? They can read it, can't they?
Oh yeah. For a limited time, they can until we close this round of investment. It's available, at the website.
So I highly encourage you to check that out, because you will find something that you relate to in that. And yes, there are sci-fi elements of the movie, but because of the relatable characters that you've crafted, that's what really draws me into it. And because of what you went through, because of what Orlando has gone through, because of what I've gone through, I think anybody that has gone through something somewhat adjacent to any of our three stories will really relate to what you have crafted in The Shift.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's my hope. It's The Shift gets not accused, but people note that it does, kind of deal with some darkness, kind of the darkness that's in the world, and we try not to shy away from that. And the reason for that is because as you can tell by my story, I've experienced some darkness in my life, but it's through that darkness that I've also experienced the biggest moments of light. Coming to an understanding of Christ's love for the men who killed my father, and being able to experience that love and take that as my own, and being able to forgive them. There is no light brighter than that. But I don't get to that light without going through that darkness first, the darkness of losing my father. And I think that's such an important thing to recognize, that light just is not independent of darkness. It's just not. And we have these experiences for a reason. People say everything happens for a reason. And I actually really don't like that phrase, because I think that some things just happen, and they don't have any reason attached to them. But things can have had happened for a reason, which is a very awkward phrasing, but I think more accurate, because what it means is that we can take those things that have happened to us and we can make them for our good. I think that's what God wants us to do. I think he wants us to take these things. That's their purpose. He wants us to take them, and he wants us to find the light. And he wants us to find him through these things. That's the point of it. And that's certainly been the point for me. And I think that's the point of The Shift, and that's Kevin's whole journey, is going through all of this darkness, not understanding why it's happening or what it's for, and still finding God within it. And as you say, anybody who's read the feature film script, I think that would become very, very clear that is what the film is about. And I don't know. I mean, for me personally, there's not a more important message to share, especially with the world that we live in right now. The world that Kevin inhabits is a dark world, but I don't think it's all that far off from the one that we inhabit.
Yeah, it's basically a heightened version of the struggles that we're going through in our world today. And I'm on board with you. I don't believe that God specifically causes tragedy. One of the worst things that I heard after losing my sister was, well, I guess God just needed her up there. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't love those sentiments. But tragedy,
they get at the idea that it's like God is forcing everything. I think that's what I disagree with it, is that we are allowed to make choices. The men who killed my father, they made a choice. The guy who drove drunk with your sister, he made a choice. I don't think God made him make that choice, but it's about what do we do with it after the fact.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. It's how do we find God in the helpers, in the brothers and sisters that come to us in our times of struggle. And just listening to this part of your story gets me so excited, just beyond The Shift. And I don't want to sound like a salesman here right now, but I believe in you as a filmmaker. I believe in you above and beyond The Shift. I mean, to me, The Shift is step one. It is going to be an amazing project, and it is going to launch the next one and the next one and the next one. And you have so much story to tell. And we haven't even touched on yet, you have a daughter with special needs, significant special needs, right? That also influences your view of the world and your writing and your desire to tell particular stories. Do you remember how you and your wife reacted initially when you found out about your daughter's
Oh my God.
situation.
This is where you're going to make me tear up. That was devastating. That was devastating, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to share anything my wife doesn't want out there. But suffice it to say, it was not a trial that we were expecting in our lives, nor was it a trial that we thought that we could handle. Like really, if there was one thing that we thought, okay, God is never going to slide this one towards us because He knows, like there's absolutely no way that we can handle that one. That would be the one. That trial, obviously it's continuing because she's still with us and she still has the needs and they're just as severe as they were when she was born. And so that's a daily thing for us. But I would say it took about 6 years till we were at peace with her and at peace with the way that she had interrupted our lives. That's a long time. That's a long time to have, I don't want to say resentment towards your child. It wasn't that. It's not that we ever resented her, but we resented this situation. And we didn't understand why we were saddled with it. And I'm glad, I'm happy to report that now we're in a much, much better place with that and with her, and we accept her and we see her as this just giant light in our life. Every night I'll give her a hug before she goes to bed. It is like, darn you, Justin. It is like holding on to just pure innocence. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like she's just so pure and so perfect. And but she also represents such a struggle for us, something that we really had to endure, and that's not too unlike what Orlando was describing earlier, where it's just this trial that just persists and just doesn't really give up, and that you don't totally know, what the way out is. That's kind of what she represents for us, and I'm so glad that here we are. She's 16 now, and so we're many years removed from really the heavy part of that trial. But it continues and it persists, and it's just part of our lives now. And I will always be grateful for that because I think I have a degree of empathy that I never would have had without her. Yes, my father, that was definitely a big one. Maybe God just has a whole bunch of lessons to teach me because I'd be a horrible human being without these things. But I know that she is a significant factor in whatever goodness I've got. She's definitely a big part of that.
Well, and again, I don't buy into this idea. Yes, we are created in the image of God. He knows us before we're born. But I also think that nature does come in at times, and sometimes there is something that gets misadjusted in the DNA somewhere. It's not because God causes that or inflicts that or anything, but a byproduct of going through those trials are that you as a human being are strengthened. And as you alluded to with your father's situation, you find the light in that. And you become an amazing storyteller out of all of this, and someone that through your storytelling is going to lead people to Christ and lead people to that light. And not in a I love your pitch video. Not in a cheesy way, and that's what excites me so much. A good looking, similar to The Chosen. Don't mean to bring The Chosen up again, but a high quality production that also has good faith values to it. We need more of that, and the shift is that, and what you do beyond the shift too is going to be just more of this light. I love it. Even and The Shift is a dark movie, but there's light in it, if that makes sense. Right.
No, The Shift is a dark movie, but the point of the darkness is to highlight the light. That's really the point of it. And I think anybody who's read the script knows that when you get to the end of that thing, if you've missed the point, if you've missed that it's about light, then I must have messed up something. But I really think it'd be hard to get all the way through that script and not understand that, this is really about light, and this is really about finding our way through darkness. And of course, that's the experience we want people to have with the full movie, and that's why we want to make it, because we want to present that to the world. But yeah, I do think I'm with you. I have a lot of more stories to tell. I don't know if I've ever revealed this before, but I've already written a whole script about my dad and all of that, and turned that into a script. I'd love to make that movie. So I do hope the shift is successful, so that I can keep telling stories, because I'd love to do that. I've wondered for a long time, why these various things have happened, and why I've had the struggles I've had, and I've very much come to a place where I feel like I think I'm supposed to tell these stories. I think I'm supposed to tell stories that tap into the things that I've learned and the things that are important to my life. I feel like that's kind of one of the reasons I was put here on this earth. So that's my big motivation for doing it.
And I'm so happy to call you friend and be riding along with you. And want to ask one, probably this might be the last question. Maybe we've got some questions coming from the live stream that will show up here.
Yeah. But let's throw them up.
What are the chances, Brock? Just give me a percentage chance of me playing Satan in The Shift.
A percentage chance. Justin, I would say that there's a what are you doing to me?
I'm throwing you a curveball. Come on.
You're throwing me under the bus is what you're doing. Because there's people who are like, oh yeah, hire Justin.
Hey.
I think that there is a world in which it is 100% chance, because as we know from The Shift, there are many, many worlds out there, and there is a world in which you play. No, I don't.
Just not this world.
Just not this world. That was Orlando. I didn't say that. That wasn't me.
I was hoping for a Dumb and Dumber moment where you'd say like 0.000001, and I would say, so you're saying there's
a chance.
I'll wait for the next one. No. I'll land a role in one of the next projects, and I am. Well, I'm so excited for
it's not a one character show, so I would love to have you participate in the film in some way. I've made no secret about that. I think we just got to find the right way to do that. Because you're a talented dude.
Well, Pete's got a good comment there that I just have to laugh at. Ho, 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 ho. See what I did
Santa,
there?
but maybe not Satan. Maybe, but not Satan. Oh, that's funny. Well, great. Well, hey, you mentioned the pitch video. I'd love to check that out real quick, and maybe we can just come back and say goodbye to you after that real quick. And get your thoughts on kind of some of the messages in there, because look, that pitch video, this video, it's got some challenging thoughts in there. We're kind of taking Christian films to task a little bit, and if you've got just a few more moments, I'd love to check that out and then get your thoughts on that. Is that cool?
Sure.
Let's do it. Let's check this out.
What happens when atheists make Bible movies? You get films like this. How could you cast Batman as Moses and still have the movie be more boring than church? Never send Hollywood to do a Christian's job. No, not that Christian. You had your chance. Still like you as Batman, though. There are two problems when it comes to faith-based movies. Number one, most Christian films look cheap because they don't have the budget. The second problem is when Hollywood attempts to make their own faith movie, which is when you get Noah talking to rock monsters. Was a global flood not epic enough for you, Hollywood? Most faith-based movies fall apart quickly. And watching them is like walking on Legos with your eyes. It's hard to feel God in a faith-based film when they have the production value of a church play.
I don't feel safe!
Hey, you don't cry until the last scene!
Pray for them. Hollywood has all of the production value, but none of the Christian value. How can we as believers enjoy a faith-based film that's as enjoyable as a blockbuster, but retains the power and truth of the Bible? We need a Hollywood-quality movie created by actual believers, and that movie is The Shift. It's about a man who meets the devil himself and gets banished to a dark, parallel earth where he fights to get back to the woman he loves. The script explores some of today's hardest questions about maintaining faith, like how can a loving God allow suffering? Or how can I overcome feelings of despair and hopelessness? Finally, you can see a faith-based film that feels like your favorite movies. The Shift is a sci-fi film that will make you think deeply like Inception, and weep like Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar. Man, even his ugly cry looks good. I can't do it. I can't. I'm not that talented. Using popular genres to share faith-based stories is a great way to entertain and inspire a love for God. Look at C.S. Lewis, who used fantasy to share Christian themes and inspire millions. And make millions. Even Jesus used creative storytelling to make his sermons more interesting. Parables. I'm talking about parables. We need your help to turn The Shift into a full-length feature film. But rather than pass around a donation plate, we want you to own part of the movie. Click the link to invest in The Shift today. The plan is for The Shift to be distributed by Angel Studios, which helped The Chosen become the largest crowdfunded media project of all time. Angel Studios' distribution of The Chosen then went on to generate over $70 million in revenue and over 250 million views. Here's what the creator of The Chosen has to say about The Shift.
I have actually signed on to be one of the executive producers of The Shift, and I want to see more, and I want to be part of it. And it reaches me on both an intellectual level and an emotional level.
Angel Studios also helped the Wingfeather Saga, an animated fantasy series created by a Christian author, become the largest crowdfunded kids and family animated project in history. When you invest in The Shift, you're not just investing in a groundbreaking Christian film. You have the potential to share in the profits. Now, we don't have one of these prophets to promise that you'll make this profit. But I am going to repeat that The Chosen earned $70 million in revenue. That's the highest earning faith-based project of the last 2 years. The Shift not only has the incredible potential in the marketplace, it's just an incredible movie. Listen to these reviews from folks who watched the short film. Jane F. wrote, "This looks amazing. I've never seen a faith-based film like this." Ronnie said, "There's actually no way to convey how this spoke to me just now. I look forward to seeing what God does with this film." And Jason commented recently with, "Wow, just wow." And what will really wow you is discovering that the short film was created with almost zero budget and it has already touched hundreds of thousands of lives. Imagine the impact The Shift can have on hearts and minds with the proper funds. Most indie Christian films operate with a budget of about $500,000, and honestly, it shows. She's fine. Maybe the little shepherd boy could say a quick prayer? Yep, we good? With 10 times the production value, we can truly do justice to the epic themes in the Bible. So click on the link to invest in The Shift today. Look, there's nothing wrong with a film that's a labor of love, but those usually just become cult classics, which is not the best label for a Christian movie to receive. Enjoy Sunday morning values with Saturday night entertainment. Click the link to invest in The Shift today.
All right, that is our what I think is a pretty killer pitch video, and we've had some comments and some investments come in. We want to highlight those real quick before we continue with Justin. Leslie from Oregon invested $105. Thank you so much, Leslie. And Mark from Massachusetts invested $150. Thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate your partnership. Some people have been, while we've been talking, Justin, they've been sharing with us what their shifts are. But also we have Bradley who says Justin can play a heckler role, yelling puns in a crowd. I think I'll have to write that into the script. Are you up for it, Justin? You want to be a heckler?
I could probably handle being a heckler. If Bradley thinks I can do it, I trust him. Bradley is a dear friend of mine. Works for The Chosen.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you for joining us, Bradley. Sharon says, maybe a good guy, not Satan. Oh, she's pigeonholing you, Justin. She can't see your capacity for evil like I can and the rest of us.
So when I lived in LA, those were the roles I got, were the bad guy, because I have kind of the deep inset eyes, and I can just kind of furrow my brow. And the worst, the baddest of the bad guys are always kind of nice at first, and then they, wait for it, shift.
Oh, there we go. No, I bet you can do it. Whoa, we gotta, okay.
Oh, my.
This is a little bit smaller, so I'm gonna have to squint to see it. But Lilia, looks like she shared with us, oh, thank you, John. She shared with us her experience here. This is pretty heavy. She says, my daughter was murdered and died in my arms. She was in a coma, and I too felt as if maybe I didn't pray hard enough. Was it faithless prayer? I still feel guilty and ask God for guidance. The trial is coming up. I pray for justice for my daughter. I'm in so much pain. Why her? Why did her fiance kill her? Why couldn't I protect her? So many whys. And then I see your video. Thank you for this. This video has opened my eyes. God bless you. I needed to see and hear this video. That's First of all, Lilia, we're very, very sorry to hear that. That's a horrible, horrible tragedy. But I'm glad that we could offer some comfort for you today. Thank you so much for sharing your story. That really means a lot. Gosh, that's we've had some heavy stuff today. Justen, I want to thank you. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say to Lilia too. I mean, the why questions are natural and they're going to come, and I'm not qualified to give any advice, but you won't know the why in this life, and that's the first thing that I had to accept. And I think, Brock, probably the first thing you had to accept is there is no answer to the question why in this world. We're a broken world, we're a fallen world, and gosh, Lily, if I could give you a hug right now, I really truly would. I'm an empath through and through, and I am so sorry, so sorry.
For sure, well said. Justen, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Any last thoughts? What about with this pitch video, with what we're saying about Christian film? Some people are taking us to task a little bit, feel like we're calling it out a little bit too much. What are your thoughts on that? And you be honest.
You know, several years ago I was doing a blog just before vlogs were a thing, and I had started to, before I had really established myself in this industry, and I don't even know if I'm established now, to be honest. I'm associated with an established project, but I was kind of being that calling out person to, why are we settling for less than stellar production quality? Why are we settling for a sermon disguised as a movie when we can really do a movie and still get a sermon in there if we want to, but that shouldn't be the goal. It's a roundabout way of saying that I think there is room for both kinds. I think that there can be sermons hidden within a movie, but there can also be these really high production value movies that are going to challenge people too, that aren't the Shift might not be the movie that you want to bring your 6-year-old to.
Right.
But there are, there's enough of that content out there that I think it's fair to have a little more mature movie. I mean, you wouldn't bring your 6-year-old to The Passion, I would hope. Mel Gibson's The Passion. Yeah. There's room for both kinds, and it's not that one has to overtake the other or anything like that. So I love the pitch video for calling out that there is just an overabundance maybe of the low budget kind, and that it's time to start having more of these bigger budget, or at least they look like bigger budget projects. And I think you're going to be able to, I mean, the team that you're assembling, you're going to be able to pull off what's going to look like a far bigger budget than even what you're going to end up having, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is definitely the goal is we're going to have a budget as a certain size, and it's going to allow us to do what we need to do. But we want to make something that looks even better than what we've got on paper. But look, it's also not just about budget. We can only fit so much messaging into a short film, or into a pitch video. But I like what you said about how, we have these types of movies over here, and that's fine. And I do believe that's fine. I think that's good. Those should exist. But there's another kind of movie that can be made that serves people more like me and maybe more like some of you that are listening. And that kind of movie is like what you're talking about, Justen, where it's the sermon is more secondary, or it's more embedded within a really strong narrative, so that it's not just leading with that. We're leading with a really strong story. We're leading with relatable characters. And then the story and then the message comes out through that in a more natural way. And I feel like the Chosen does that really well. And that's the same ambition we have with The Shift. It's like, it's not good enough for it to just look like a quality holiday movie. It's also gotta feel like one. And we do that by focusing on a really great story that matches the ambition of what we're doing, and really great characters in there. And that's why we put the script out there, because we felt like we've got that, and people should have a chance to see that's what we're doing.
Well, and The Shift is going to be one of those movies that believers will be able to bring their non-believer friends to,
Right.
and not be embarrassed or cringy or feel like they're
you don't have to
preaching to
apologize
their
for it.
friends too much. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So just like there would never be a pizzeria that only served cheese pizza, there shouldn't be a Christian film catalog that only has one kind of movie. We need pepperoni movies, we need sausage movies, and even some Canadian bacon pineapple movies for the weirdos.
I love pineapple on my pizza. I mean, I may have just turned off half our audience, but I have to admit the truth.
It's been good knowing you. Good luck with everything.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. No, but sincerely, thank you for joining us today. We live across the country from each other, and if we only lived a little bit closer, I have a feeling we'd be playing board games just about every night. So I just appreciate getting a chance to talk to you in whatever context that happens to be in.
My board game collection is strategically off screen right now, but it's quite extensive. And the green screen is because I was doing a video for The Chosen earlier today, didn't have time to take it down and clean up what's behind it. So this is all just protecting you from the mess that is my office.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk with you again. And hopefully in a few weeks here, we'll be celebrating that we're well on our way to making this movie.
Awesome. Love you, brother. Good luck. Talk to you soon.
Too. All right. Bye. All right. I'm going to let Orlando back in here so we can wrap this up. If you want to invest in The Shift, you can do that right now at angel.com/The Shift. Welcome back, Orlando.
That's pretty smooth.
What's that?
That was pretty smooth.
That was pretty smooth. Like you perfectly went right in there. We have just a few more minutes here. If anybody has any remaining questions or comments, please feel free to pop them up. If you are curious about The Shift, curious about the script, you can go and read that right now at angel.com/The Shift. Just scroll all the way down to the bottom. If you're not big into reading, go ahead and take a listen. We have an audio version as well. We thank you for joining us. We so appreciate it. Any comments? Let's see. We got a comment here from Jeff. Are the money toward perks additive across the 3 investment rounds? Yes, Jeff. I believe so, yeah. Definitely. If you add to your investment, we will look at what the cumulative total is and assign the proper perk that way. So anybody who has already added an investment or already made an investment, you want to come in again, you can do so. Now is the time to do that. Yep. Looks like we have a few more shift stories coming up here. Let's go ahead and share those. Let's see. It's coming. Here we are with Kathy. She says she grew up in California, moved away from family to live in Texas. Major shift. Yeah, absolutely. A big move like that. I don't know how old you were when you did that, Kathy, but I know for me when we moved when I was a kid, it was massive. But I mean, even as an adult, you move that far away, that's crazy. Thank you for sharing that. Any others here? We got Noah. He says, biggest shift in my life, going from multiple YouTube channels of dog videos to Against the Tide Media. It completely changed the route of my future and made me so much more passionate about sharing who God really is. Yeah, Noah is a really a big fan of The Shift and somebody who is doing some major things at a really young age, creating the Against the Tide Media empire. Which he's connected with The Chosen, connected with movies like Blue Miracle, and connected with The Shift and interviewing people. And he's still in high school, I believe, and I think he started it when he was in junior high. Yeah. So Noah's
come a long ways from dog videos.
Come a long ways from dog videos for sure. A great example of a shift. Thank you, Noah. And lovely Lori Pop says, currently shifting. Grown woman here who can't afford insane money to rent, so I'm moving to temporary live with relatives to save up money.
Okay, so I don't know. My wife's probably not gonna like this. We've done that 3 times, so totally get that. It's a lot of sucking up pride, and it feels like there's this internal like feeling like you're a bit of a failure, kind of a thing. This voice that's kind of nagging in the back of your head. Don't listen to that. It's what's best for you. It's what's good for your family. You just got to do what you got to do, and it sets you up for the future. So, hey, I'm right there with you. 3 times I've done that.
Yeah. Got a question here from Noah. He says, where and when are you filming? Noah, we don't know that yet. That is going to depend a lot on several factors. It can only happen once we have enough money to enact that process, which is pre-production and reaching out to actors. We're really going to try to build our schedule around, whoever our leads are, so that we can make sure that we secure them. And we got one last comment here before we take off. Justin commented. He says, always a pleasure spending time with Brock and the Shift supporters. Justin, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it. And thank you, all of you, for joining us. We are going to come back and have another live stream with you next week. This is going to be a big one. We are going to have Jason Gray, our spokesperson from our pitch video, is going to be joining us. We're going to have your friend.
Yep, Shama.
Tell him a little bit about him.
Shama's a good friend that I met on a show once, and we've stayed in contact ever since then. He's got this Instagram channel, YouTube channel, where they just make this great comedic Christian videos. It kind of like, it's a little satirical. They kind of poke fun at church culture and Christian culture, but he's a youth pastor. I mean, it comes from a good place. It's very charitable, but very, very funny.
Well, and Shama was recently involved with the Double Wars.
That's right. Yeah. He and his co-producer that they do all their content together, they were the hosts of the pre-show for TVN. So they got to meet all the celebrities.
Kind of a rising star in the Christian media world, and particularly with comedy.
Specifically
Shama stuff is
it's
really,
brilliant.
really funny.
It's
really
brilliant.
We got another investment just came in from Kevin from Illinois, who invested $300. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Awesome. Thank you.
And the big thing, if everything goes according to plan, because it's not done yet, but it should be done, next week from today, we're going to be debuting our animatic. Our animatic is a 10-minute sequence from the feature film done with lightly animated storyboards, actors, sound, music. It's going to have the whole thing with drawings. It's going to be pretty cool.
Can you tease one thing?
You can tease one thing.
Okay, so I know the goal was like, if we hit the investment goal, which we know, which is cool, that I would share what my favorite scene is. It's actually portrayed in the animatic.
Oh, well, there you go.
So we can talk more about that later.
But
it's very exciting.
Awesome. So next week you're going to see Orlando's favorite scene in animatic form, and I think you guys are. This is something we've been working on for months.
Oh yeah.
So I think this is something that's going to be really special. I think it's going to be really exciting to share. So please spread the word. Let your friends know. Next week, big live stream. Very important live stream. We're gonna be really showing a really key important piece of the Shift. Really pulling back the curtain on the actual film in a way we never have before.
It'll be a little later though.
I think it's a little bit later in the evening. Yeah, so it should be a little bit easier for people to attend.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you again. Kathy, last comment from Kathy. I sort of miss the days when Brock would forget to hit the unmute button. Kathy, I'm sorry to disappoint you.
It's out of his hands. That's why.
It's out of my. I don't have control of the mute button anymore, which is why I remember to do it. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Brock Heasley, the writer and director of The Shift.
I'm Orlando J. Gomez, producer of The Shift.
Good night, everybody.
Take it easy.
Hey there, I'm Dallas Jenkins. I'm the creator of The Chosen, and I wanted to share with you a little bit of why I have actually signed on to be one of the executive producers of The Shift. I remember when I first saw the short film, The Shift, it was probably a couple years ago, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't know who this person is who made this, and I had heard that they did it for no money, but I'm really impressed, and I believe that this guy has a future. And I wanted to see more. I wanted to see where The Shift turned out. I wanted to see how it could be expanded upon. I wanted to see what Brock could do with an actual budget. So The Shift now has a relatively small budget. They're really keeping the budget low, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do, is help them maximize the budget that they do have, and making sure that every penny that we spend is spent in the best and most efficient way possible, which is one of the things that I hope, if you've seen The Chosen, you've realized we did there too, was we didn't have Hollywood money, but we had enough to make something special. And I think that's what Brock has now. I think he's going to get, and I hope you can help him get, enough to make something special. And I think the message of The Shift and the future of The Shift is so important. And almost as important as any of that is Brock Heasley. He didn't ask me to say this, I promise. But I can tell you, I've seen his work on a writing side, I've seen it on the directing side, And in my 20 years in the business, there are very few people who I've thought, I want to pour into this person because I think that this person has the chance to be an impactful and disruptive and important storyteller in this business. And that is Brock. Brock is someone who, when I read what he's writing, I'm connected to it. And I want to see more. And I want to be part of it. And it reaches me on both an intellectual level and an emotional level. And if you've seen The Chosen, maybe that's what you've appreciated about it as well, is that it's not just pure emotion. It's emotion that has some thought behind it, but it's also not pure intellect. It's intellect that has some heart behind it. And all of that is, there's kind of an umbrella over all of it of a spiritual importance. Something is being said about our universe and who created it.
Nothing. Nothing. Tomorrow. I am greater than God. Jesus I am greater.
And that's what The Shift is about. That's what The Chosen is about. It's one of the reasons why I've signed on board, and I hope you can get involved as well to be part of the beginning of what I believe is an important project and who I believe is an important filmmaker.
We need your help to turn The Shift into a full-length feature film. Click the link to invest in The Shift today.